Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to the first breakout session. This particular one will run from 10:30 to 11:15. My name is Forrest. I'm the section chair for Greater Houston. This is now so first of all, thank you guys for coming out. And this is the 5th year we've done this. We tried to do it in 2017. Hurricane Harvey ruined that for us. And thanks for coming out. Just by show of hands, how many of you is the first time attending the Houston Regional Conference? Well, that's great. And the rest of you guys are returning back. Thank y'all so much. It's my honor to introduce this next speaker, Fab Bouchereau. He's a professional engineer,
Professional at something.
Yeah. Project management professional and Six Sigma Black Belt. Also, an award-winning author. If you haven't checked out this book, please do. You can find it on Amazon. It's a publication, Kaizen Kanban, presents visual facilitation approach that leverages fundamental quality and lean tools to compile, prioritize project pipelines for organizations. So please check that out. The book's selling really well and really proud of it. And also, too, like Fabrice is working on becoming one of the next ASQ fellows for this sector. So we're really excited about his progress he's making on that. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for Fab Bouchereau.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining me here today. You guys ready? We checked in? Well, today we're going to try to talk about how to set up for quality excellence in 10 minutes or less. And let me tell you, the people at this section, they take everything you say very seriously. About 6 months ago, when they called me, they said, would you like to build a workshop for us? We'll give you about 4 hours. Great, no problem. I'll build a 4-hour workshop. A few months later, they call me, what's your workshop about? It's about doing things in less time. Great, that's perfect because we're giving you 45 minutes. Wow, okay, we're taking this quite literally. Any of you guys ever wake up in the morning and figure out, man, what could I do to get the kids ready? Instead of being a 30-minute chore, we're gonna try to make it a 4-hour chore. Anybody try to extend those unpleasant moments? Right, if you're gonna have to set up, get ready for a party, you're just gonna try to take it longer. Normally we don't do that. Normally we're constantly trying to see how we can do more in less time. And this is exactly where our presentation is gonna take us today. The goal of this presentation is to help you identify ways that you can reduce the amount of time it takes you to set up to do something in less time. You know how in Texas we like to say, I'm fixing to do? We're going to reduce the time it takes us to do the fixing.
Decrease the fixing.
Today we're going to talk about what is set up, what is a changeover, why do we need to do setup reduction, and how to do setup reduction. I know you guys are curious about this party, we'll get there, I promise. This is some quick vocabulary. It's probably one of the most serious things we're going to do today. The rest will be just drawings. When you think of setup time, traditionally, if we look at manufacturing, it's the amount of time it took to go from producing the last good product you make to the time it takes you to get ready and prepare the first good next product. For example, if you're changing from one car model to the next, or in our case, it's from widget A to widget B. The amount of time it takes us to do that, to do the changeover. To give you an example, I did a couple of projects for Igloo. The time, let's say they're making a cooler on their production line, one of those nice big coolers that they make, and they were making it in green. And they decide, we need to make them in blue now. It took them over 12 hours just to change the color. Because they have to purge their entire system. That's 12 hours of you have people working non-stop and you're not making any product you can sell. That's what we're trying to eliminate. That's why we're trying to reduce so that we can do it more easily. A couple of quick characteristics about a setup or a changeover. First thing to keep in mind, it should be fast and effortless. Think about NASCAR or Formula One. When you see the cars come in and very quickly they turn everything around, you're in, you're out. Think about Jiffy Lube. If you go to get your oil change, you don't even need to get out of your car. You drive up, everything is done very, very quickly. That's what we're trying to see, how we can do it in non-manufacturing environments. By the end of this session, we'll discuss how can we prepare taxes faster. Let's say you're a CPA or you're starting a new accounting business. How are we going to use some of those tools to apply it to service? As manufacturing is done more and more overseas, we have more service jobs. We have more processes that we address that don't produce anything tangible. And we have less time to do these things. What can we do for end of month? For those type of activities, so when we have to do inventory counts, what can we do so that our setup takes less time? I don't know, any of you had to do yearly inventory? You guys remember those 3 or 4 weeks before the actual inventory day, all the work that we have to do? What is it that we can do? Why can't we apply what was done in manufacturing to just inventory count? And this is what we're going to look at today. The tool that we're going to use as our inspiration is SMIT, Single Minute Exchange of Die. The idea came from the fact that in the auto industry, they used to stamp all the metal. For example, the hood of your car used to be stamped. And if you needed to change from one car model to the next, you literally had to remove tons of material for the stamp, a giant stamp, and replace it with another. And it used to take hours. And all that time, just like at Igloo, was wasted time that we're not producing anything. The idea is, how could we do it in 10 minutes or less? Interestingly enough, it used to be single-digit exchange of die. The idea was to do it in 1 digit, in 10 minutes or less. For some reason, single minute was more catchy, and it became single-minute exchange of die. We're going to talk about strategy. This will be one of our last slides before we go and start drawing. Just as a quick note, I want to mention, given that we went from 4 hours to 45 minutes, I wanted to make sure that you guys have a very complete presentation. So this is about a 60-slide presentation that I'll make available for you online as a PDF. As we're going to be doing a lot of talking here, discussing amongst ourselves, to go faster, I've hidden some of the slides that we're going to draw here or we're going to do as a team. But everything is available online for you to be able to see the entire process. A couple of things that we need to do if we want to reduce setup time. First thing we need to do is understand the situation. Who's doing what, where, when, what is it that we're looking at? The strategy will be very iterative. You cannot accomplish all your changes all at once. It's going to take incremental improvements. Because every time you make an improvement, next time you look at the process, you'll be able to see other ones. There are things that were not possible before that will now become possible. The idea is going to be simple. We measure the time, and we decide arbitrarily, how can we reduce it by half? That's our goal. Now keep in mind, that goal becomes increasingly harder. Right now, it takes me 30 minutes to walk a mile. It's fairly easy for somebody to say, for a little bit of training, we can get you down to 15 minutes. But you take a world-class sprinter that's running the 100-meter dash in less than 10 seconds, it doesn't seem possible we can get them to do it in 4, does it? It's going to get increasingly hard. The good news is, at the beginning, at most of your organizations, most of your activities, you will find a lot of low-hanging fruit. Let's go here. Let's go and discuss it. Instead of going through an entire slide deck, decided we could just draw a little bit. Imagine we have to prepare a party. This is what our task is. And we are giving 3 hours. We reserve the hall, and as the party starts at 6, you get the hall at 3 o'clock. Or anybody that's ever tried to reserve a church for a wedding, typically there's a wedding coming out, and as the people are coming out, they're removing their flowers and trying to sneak in to put yours. Imagine that's what we're doing. And if we're doing the party, there's 4 things we're doing in this party. We have to set up our decorations. So we'll do our decorations. We'll just have, a couple of banners with little flags. a few balloons. So that's our decoration setup. And this is taking 3 hours. Okay? You have your food setup. We're going to be making scrambled eggs. That's what we're going to do. And to set up our food station, because it will be done a la carte, or as customers want. The customer comes and tells what they want, and you will do it. To do that setup, so our food setup is taking us 4 hours. Of course, we cannot have a party in Texas without having some alcohol in it. We're going to have a bar setup, so I'll put a few bottles here for us, a glass, a few bottles here. You get the idea. So this is our bar setup, and the bar setup is taking us 2 hours. And of course, we need music. So with our speaker here, we have our music, and that's taking 1 hour. Now we know we only have 3 hours. Which one, and we're 2 months out, we're trying to figure out which one of those do you think would give us problems? The food setup, right? If we were doing it in a manufacturing environment, and if we want to convey it to a more scientific audience, one of the things we could do is a quick simple bar chart. We could say here, it's 3 for the decoration setup, that's 3 here. The food setup, we know, was 4 hours. 4 here. We got alcohol that we set up in 2. Set up in 2. And here you have your music setup. When you think about the time that we have is 3 hours, we could put it with this. 3 hours. That lets us see this is what's in excess. How did that translate originally when we were doing this in manufacturing? Anybody here heard of takt time? I'll venture to give me, what is takt time? What does takt time mean to you in your industry?
I'm taken to produce material.
Exactly, the time that we need to produce in order to meet the customer demand. The customer tells us when we do our market survey, we realize in order to produce enough widgets for the customer for what they want to buy, we need to produce one every 3 hours. When we're setting a production line, let's say we're gonna make cars, we know that in order to meet customer demands, a car needs to come out every 3 hours. And everything that we do is gonna make sure that all our processes allow us to do that. And it's the same thing that you guys naturally did when you looked here. It took you 1 second to figure out, hey, 4 hours is gonna be too long. That is the first step. The first step is called priority setup, priority identification. So the first thing you need to do is identify which one of all those setups you need to address first. And in our case, this is it. The next thing we're going to do is let's look at what makes this setup. And I got a couple of examples for you. What do we need to do to set up our omelet station? We need to get eggs plus veggies. We need to get our tools. These are our knives and everything. We cut the veggies. We break the eggs. Then we need to clean the skillet that we're going to use. Then we heat up our skillet. And then the next thing we do is we pour our eggs, add veggies, and then we can scramble our eggs. And finally, we're going to serve it to the customer. You guys see that's a pretty good little, quick little process map of what happens? Here. Why did I do that? I'm trying to understand what my process is. I'm trying to understand where I'm wasting time. When you see this, every time a customer comes, let me read it for you the way we initially envisioned this. Every time a customer comes, we're gonna run to the yard, look for the chicken, see where the egg is. We're gonna grab the egg, we're gonna come back. We're gonna go get the vegetable, just enough. Need 1 tomato, we grab 1 tomato from the tree, bring it back. Then, while the customer is waiting, we're gonna cut it because we want the customer to see us running after the chicken. Right out there, it's gonna be like right there, you see that here? Usually that chicken right there, right? Sounds a little bit ridiculous, right? But we do this all the time. Think about it. Here, we have cut veggies. Does it really add value for us to cut the veggies in front of the customer? Anybody gone to Benihana or to any of those places? Do they cut the veggies in front of you? They don't. Yet they're still able to put an incredible show. Now they might cut one just for show to show you the knife skills, but now they're gonna sit here and cut everything. I mean, think about it. Every time I go to a brunch, where's the longest line? Always at the omelet station. And yet they don't cut the veggies. And that's what we're trying to see. How do we prepare it faster? How do we set up this omelet station so that we'll be able to have faster throughput? First thing we could do is we're going to identify, we're going to share with you an important thing about SMED is understanding the difference between internal and external work. Imagine that you're a baker and you have to make bread. There are some actions you can only do when the oven is off, such as loading your new loaves of bread that are going to be baked. But there's other actions you can do even if the oven is on. You can be knitting, you can be preparing your next group of breads. The difference between them is what's known as internal and external setup operation. An internal operation can only be done while the machine is stopped. An external operation can be done while the machine is running. In our case for the omelet, if we interpret that, and this is where we take our traditional quality tools and we interpret them for our service industry, we don't have a machine stopped, but we could consider the customer. There are some actions we can only do while the customer's there. There's others we can do in advance. For example, since the customer is the one that chooses if they want onions, tomatoes, green peppers, we can only do that when they're there. Versus cutting them ahead of time is something we can do before. All right? Just want to point out, all these actions here, if you look at it, this is your setup. And everything you have here that's your production. When we look at the setup steps, are there things that we can do ahead of time? For example, could we make sure we have all our knives here before? Right? But today, the way we have it set up, the way we proposed it, this is an internal step. So today, I'll put it as an internal step. We've said we would cut veggies in front of the customer. We would break the eggs in front of the customer. We would clean the skillet in front of the customer. We would heat up the skillet in front of the customer. And we would even go get the eggs in front of the customer. Everything here, the customer is waiting all that time. We don't have any external steps. And that's the second step. The first step is identify your priorities. The second step is separate internal and external operations. Okay? If we had external operations here, what we would do is we would move them out. Let me explain what I mean. Can we make getting tools an external operation? Can we have our tools already there? So this is a candidate to become external. Cutting veggies? Breaking the eggs? Okay. Well, actually, not only can we make it external, we can even use it as a marketing gimmick. A lot of people will say, man, I don't want you to be pouring from a pitcher of all those eggs mixed together. Yeah, no problem. We'll give you two options now. You have egg whites and you have regular eggs. And we have this nice setup with a spoonful that's in the shape of an egg, and we transform the entire experience for you. We even went marketing out of it. We're taking this, breaking the egg. We could argue that, oh, you don't know if the eggshell is dirty for quality purposes. Imagine you have a dirty egg and the person sees it, or a piece of egg falls in there. You'll make a bunch of problems. Cleaning the skillet. People might ask, why do we have to clean the skillet? Well, think about it. I cooked for you, then you come. I cannot just add to what I was cleaning. I have to clean it so you can have to clean the skillet. Is that something that we need to be doing as the chef? No. What would you do? How would you solve that problem? Sorry? I want you to take that idea one step further. Multiple skillets. So I completely eliminate this step, which is where all the way still at step 3, we're already jumping ahead saying, hey, we don't need to do this step at all. We can just completely eliminate it from our tasks. Right? So as we move everything here, we start looking at strategies. How are we going to make them external? Once they are external, once we realize they can be external, we actually have to do something about it. We still have to cut the veggies, just not in front of the customer. What that ends up doing, the customer was waiting all this time. If you think about all the things we remove, if we remove, get tools, cut veggies, break eggs, clean skillet. See all the times we've already eliminated from the customer waiting. I have not had to ask upper management for authorization because really I have not made any changes to the process. We still have to cut. I don't need to write a new SOP for cutting vegetables. I'm still respecting the same one we had. I'm just doing it at another time. And all honesty, I would recommend we still get an MOC, management of change, we get that started because it is customer facing. But in terms of safety, I've not done anything different. And that's also the problem. The customer no longer has to wait, but the company still has to pay. We did not reduce the work content. The fact that the vegetables are not being cut in front of the customer doesn't mean that they're not being cut. There is still opportunity for me to go in there and see how can I further reduce the time. What else could we do? Buy them already cut. And this is where we start doing our cost-benefit analysis, right? It costs me 10 more cents to get a pound of green peppers cut versus non-cut. Let's go ahead and get it cut once and for all. And this is where you get to the next step. After you've identified this, you start seeing, how do I reduce the amount of time it takes to still do it? That's when you start putting all your continuous improvement tools. That's when you start looking at different techniques, which we're gonna talk about a little bit later. We're gonna talk about all of this. So we identify our priorities, we document them, we identify what's internal, what's external. Whatever was external already, we would make sure that it's not being done there, which is being done inadvertently. Whatever is internal, we try to see if we could make it external. That way we start getting results right away. The fact that I decided that I'm not cutting vegetables, I can implement that right away, and that saves 45 seconds per customer. The fact that tomorrow I'm gonna have ordered or have 1 week's worth of vegetables to consume, and my next batch will come cut, that's the improvement for next week. But today I can celebrate that my customer's going away faster and happier. So you do that, then you go back and see, how can I further reduce this? Heat up the skillet. How can I do that faster?
Leave it on.
You could leave it on. Let's take that. How practically, so you prepare one, you're preparing the food here. You can have another one being heated up. We can start looking at all these processes to improve. And that's how we're gonna start incorporating everything that we have. I'm gonna go back to the presentation here, and what we were just talking about, as you can see, just jump to 5, it's because we discussed 1, 2, 3, 4 already. What else can we do to improve? Imagine that not only we're making scrambled eggs, we're making scrambled egg tacos. Is there a fixture we could use to hold them so that we can fill them faster? Do we have the right fixture? I mean, how many times have you been doing something and say, my God, I wish I had a third hand? That's what a fixture is supposed to do for us. It's supposed to make our life easier. If you have to align something, if I take a camera very often, you will see this little white line that says, okay, insert here and then twist. So I don't have to be playing with it. All these things seem like silly little details, but if you have to do the same operation 10,000 times a day, it adds up. I mean, I used to run a sewing plant. If every time my people had to be aligning, it took them 30 seconds, there's no way 14 people could give me 300 dozens in 8 hours. That would be just way too much. We go to our lean tools after we've done this. This is really helping us identify our opportunities, where we want to do our improvements. We still need to go back and leverage all the other tools that we have, ask the same questions we normally ask to improve. And I'm going to share some of the questions with you. As a quick reminder, you guys remember the 8 ways? That's what this is helping us document. Very often, I find a lot of people are excited about the concept of the 8 ways, but they don't know how to communicate it to the rest of their team. It seems a little bit alienating, especially if the team has already had bad experience with lean or continuous improvement. I don't talk about this. I start like that. I'm not doing lean. I'm just trying to understand what the steps are. And slowly introducing ideas to people. How often do you have to remake an omelet because you put the wrong amount? Oh, that happens all the time. As customers say, I put too much onions or I put too much tomato. What could we do to fix that? Oh, we're going to do it Mongolian buffet style. We're going to give you a little bowl, and you're going to put all the vegetables yourself, and you give it to me. That saves time from my chef. I'm giving the customer exactly what he wants. Remember I told you about how could we do this if we were somebody that's starting a new CPA business? Think about this. How do most CPAs start their own practice? Doing taxes for their friends and their family. And friends and family typically bring a shoebox full of receipts and say, here. And they have to sit down and go one by one and capture the info. How many family members are willing to sit down and help them through the receipts? Imagine that you're H&R Block or you go do your taxes, and the first thing you have to do is sit down there and be handing receipts to the CPA to put it in the computer. How many of those can the CPA do in a day? That's a waste of money, right? Especially if you have to organize, okay, where are all the hotel receipts? We put hotel receipts here. This is restaurants. Wait, where did I have the house? Wait, it's gonna be crazy. What would you do? They look at and they say, what is it that I'm doing today, sorting receipts, that I could have done before? I could have an accounting student sit down and do this. We can take it one step further. Why do I need to pay somebody to do that when I can have the customer do it? I mean, if you guys think it doesn't work, think about the last time you had to do an expense report for work. We had to sit down and enter all the information ourselves. And it just became about checking. And then TurboTax happens. We have to do the receipts, we even have to do the job of the CPA. And this is where this is going. A lot of those steps that really don't add any value to the experience, if we get rid of them, we can focus on what the customer wants. The customer wants the show. We can cut that one piece of broccoli and have incredible skill work. We can pretend we're dabbing salt or something in there. How do we do this? One of the easiest ways I found to do this and to communicate it to whatever my teams are is a simple Excel spreadsheet. And we'll typically start by going to the production floor, we're walking, and we're making notes as we go, step by step. We're listing all the steps. And after you've listed all the steps, it becomes quite easy to start answering some questions in a very easy to document manner. You observe each activity, you assign them a number, what's the activity, and then you time each of them. Now keep in mind when you're timing the activities, you have to make sure that you clearly define when you start your stopwatch and when you ended it. So next time you go to measure it again, you'll be consistent. Each of those activities, you classify them as internal, external, or just waste. In our case, we had the internals as getting the tools, cutting the veggies, and one that was obviously waste was cleaning the skillet. That was completely useless for us, just like chasing the chickens to get the eggs out of them. That didn't work. And then you set a goal for each of those activities. And we're going to talk about the goals in the next slide. And you implement your plan. The goals for any activity that we have is going to be one of 5 things. Can this activity be eliminated? Could it be combined with something else? Are we doing it too late and we could be doing it earlier in the process? Can we reduce the amount of time it takes us to do this activity? Instead of having to cut each slice of tomato, could we cut one of those slices that you just put the tomato and you get all the slices at the same time? Can it be simplified? Do we really need it to be this complicated? I have slides for each of those, and each of the slides has several questions that you can ask your team to help guide this. The idea with this presentation is for you to be able to nudge your team along, to facilitate the discussion. As you can see, we're not trying to solve anybody's problem. We're just there to help them realize that they already knew the solutions. We may have to act as a liaison with the workshop that the mechanics that can come and build the fixtures for us. We may have to talk to the person in charge of quality to see how can we modify the operating procedures, the statement of work, whatever that it is that we have to do in order to accommodate those changes. But in essence, this is what we're trying to do, and it's very consistent with typical lean activities. The benefits of, can you guys think of a few benefits from doing this? You guys want to shoot a few out? Would any of you try that at work or at home? What benefits are you expecting to get out of this simple process? And you can see we did all of this in less than 10 minutes.
Faster cycle time.
Faster cycle time,
Increased capacity.
increased capacity,
Customer satisfaction.
customer satisfaction is going to increase.
Job satisfaction for employees.
Yes, that one is very, very big. Because the guy that became the chef, he had to pay his dues to become the chef. I'm not sure he wants to be seen chasing the chick. What else do we have? Costs. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? How do you expect us to save cost on that?
Well, sometimes reduction in cycle time, all that translate to time, cost, labor costs, and value to not only the customer, but to the stakeholder.
Yes, and I'm happy you bring cost along because what's the opportunity cost of not doing this? By failing to do this, what is it that we're not able to do? I mean, I don't know about you, but every time I go to the movie theater, I want popcorn. And very often, I'm 2 minutes before the movie, and if the line is too long,
You don't have repeat customers.
you don't have repeat customers. I will leave. I will not. That's one less popcorn sale. That's the opportunity cost. You guys named pretty much all of them. Increased capacity, flexibility also. I mean, imagine if it used to take 12 hours to change from one color to the next, and now I can do it in 1 hour. I can change much faster. So I can offer you a better mix. You know, for Christmas, I can offer red and green coolers. Not either or. Improve quality, reduce inventory. If it's easy for me to go from red to green, I don't have to stock. And I know one company for 3 months out of the they only sell all their stuff in December. But for the first part of the year, they're just producing. And they're storing different volume. Why do we need to do that? We could reduce, like, if you go to San Antonio right now on the Toyota plant, they can change, they go from one model to the next, and you don't even realize it on the production line. That's how much they reduced it. Reduce space, reduce lead time, better reaction to customer demand. These are all some of the benefits that we get out of it, that we can get out of it. I'm going to open the floor for some questions. Before I do that, I just want to remind you, I will put the presentation on my page, and I will forward it to ASQ also. It's going to be our processin.net. That's the it will be in the blog section. Questions, comments, stories you could tell us about that you've tried this or that this has terribly failed? Yes, sir.
What about when you have job shops where they have a clearly defined process,
Okay.
but every job is different? You don't have repeats, steps. And how could you apply this type of thinking methodology to a job shop?
We use exactly the word you just said, the thinking and the mentality. That's where you start having people thinking about, okay, it's gonna be different, but can we have fixtures? If I have to have my fixtures, can they be changed over more easily? And you start going more for the mentality, trying to see what can we do as a setup ahead of time versus waiting for it to be here and doing it all. It actually works better in these environments, believe it or not. Once you have everybody's buy-in, then if it's a very repetitive all the time. Because if you think about it, if I have a job shop and every job is gonna be different, my people have nimble mentalities. They're already used to change. So I don't have to change the inertia of somebody that's been doing the same operation for the last 20 years. So if you approach it with that mindset, you're still gonna have the challenges, but again, it comes down to your people. I see Forrest back there going like this.
Time for food, time for lunch.
Time for lunch. Well, I'm gonna stick around. If you guys have any questions before lunch, because I know there's gonna be a line there. You can either try to lead the line, or if you have more questions, I can answer more questions for you.